This is the COVID book. Is that what made you decide to sit down and write a book?
Well, as you know, we all were home, not doing anything. And my wife has threatening me for years to write a book, and I said, nah, I don't want to. She said, I'm going to call your agent. So I called my agent, and he answered.
Wow, that's a
wow,
shocker.
wow. That was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Can I help you?
Freddie! Surprise!
Dad, you're at my door. Unannounced.
No, there's a shorter way to say that. Surprise! I'm in town for a guest lecture. I wanted to say hello.
Oh, great. Hello. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I'd love to come in. So, your place is so... Damn, when I started that sentence, I thought I'd think of something.
Yeah, sorry, the Picasso's getting reframed and the whole second floor's in the shop.
You know, you have your mother's sense of humor, Frederick. No, it's charming. It reminds me of the sort of place one would wrestle a cartoon rat for a crust of bread.
There it is. Your subtle reminder I'd make more money if I wasn't just a firefighter.
No, I admire what you do. It's a noble profession. It's just that you did so well in your psych classes at Harvard.
Right, but I wanted to do something important.
What I do is important. It's at least as important as what you do.
Okay, sure. Let's find someone who has low self-esteem and is also on fire and see which one of us they run to first.
There's that mother of yours again.
Welcome to Behind the Lens. They throw the word legend around a lot in this business, but I've got a certifiable legend sitting next to me. James Burrows has been nominated for 47 Emmys. He's won 11, 5 DGA Awards, won the DGA Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015, was actually nominated every single year for Emmys, 24 out of 26 years in a row, except for those 2 years. NBC even had a network special commemorating his 1,000th episode and his career. The Television Academy honored him in 2013. I was very honored to host that evening, and that was an amazing night. All of the people he's worked with came out to honor him, and we honor your career here. Thanks for joining us on Behind the Lens. James Burrows.
Happy to be here.
I shouldn't say James. Everybody calls you Jimmy.
Jimmy,
Your whole life
Jimmy,
you've been Jimmy. Is that right?
Yeah, or the Godfather.
You're definitely the godfather of the multicam. Maybe not the godfather, but you're certainly the one that has made it alive and continued, you know, even in its days of peril, which has been more recently. You've written about all of this in this book, which came out about a year ago, maybe a little longer, called Directed by James Burrows. It's 5 decades of stories from the legendary director of Taxi, Cheers, Frasier, Friends, Will and Grace, and more. Of course, your father was very famous, a writer and producer, and Broadway, you know, Guys and Dolls, How to Succeed, and on, Abe Burrows.
Right.
And you have great stories there about that and your early career on stage. And then right here, this year, celebrating 50th year in television. Can you believe it? This is a major watermark here for James Burrows.
I think I came out on May 24th of 1974
Wow.
to do one show for MTM. I had no idea what the show was. I had to come out and learn the technical aspects of multicamera, because it's basically a play, but you have to film the play.
Right.
So I had to learn how to film the play. And my dear friend and legend, the late Jay Sandrich,
Yeah. It's great.
I watched him, and he taught me so much. It was just incredible. And then October of '74, I did a Mary Tyler Moore show.
Wow, which is, you know, crown jewel time. I mean, just getting a chance to do that.
Yeah,
And
I was intimidated. I was this little pisher from New York
right.
who arrived and was brought out by Mary and Grant,
Right.
Mary Tyler Moore and Grant Tinker. So I was, introduced to the cast, this austere cast of, Ed Asner, Ted Knight, Gavin MacLeod, Valerie Harper, all the chorus, all these people, and I'm not sure what they thought about me. So
And you came, they'd been on for 5 seasons, or were in their 5th season.
Yeah, we're in their 5th season.
Yeah.
And I had watched the show for a while, and I kind of knew the intricacies. And when you're a guest director on the show, you have to play by the rules of the show.
Right.
So I soaked all those rules up, and I was very quiet unless I had a really good idea. And I literally invoked Chekhov, I invoked Shakespeare, all those things that benefit a sitcom. And
We don't think of that.
I
but
know.
yeah.
And it was a terrible script. And I said to Grant Tinker, I said, in a sea of Danish, I get a bagel. And I just did everything I could to make it better. And I'll never forget the moment when we were about to film. We filmed at 7:30, and I was walking out to the stage, and Mary Tyler Moore came over to me and said, "We feel our investment in you has worked out."
Wow. That's a huge honor right there.
That was transcendental. That was.
And that was the beginning. And I remember talking to you at that TV Academy night about what you did on New York stage and things, and with Mary Tyler Moore in the famously disastrous Breakfast at Tiffany's Broadway musical with her and Richard Chamberlain. And I think it lasted 4 performances.
4
or
previews.
something. 4 previews. But fate always intervenes, and you wound up writing a letter to Mary, and she knew you, and and that's what birthed this incredible career. It's funny how things work out.
Yeah, I was lucky because they had, I think, 4 multi-camera sitcoms on the air, and they were smart enough to know that the kind of director you want for a multi-camera sitcom is somebody who comes from the stage,
Yeah.
because it's all about that. So they figured I could learn the cameras, and my inherent ability with working with actors was I didn't have to learn.
Was it just a family business? Were you preordained? I know you talked about going, through university and everything else, and maybe not following in your father's footsteps exactly here, but you wound up every bit as accomplished and famous as your father.
Well,
Yeah.
I like to think not.
Really?
Growing up in New York, he was, they used to call him the show doctor. He would write, and he wrote Guys and Dolls, he wrote How to Succeed, he wrote Cactus Flower, he wrote all those shows, but he would also go in and help shows that were flailing around.
Yeah.
So he had a big reputation there. And even after my success in television, when I would go back to New York to see shows, and I couldn't get a ticket, I knew that the box office always keeps a pair in case somebody screws up. So I would go up to the box office and say, "Hi, I'm Abe's kid, Jim. And I know you have a pair back there. Can I buy them?" So, he was a legend, and I guess I've done very well in this particular world, but to me, he'll always be my hero.
The very first Broadway show I ever saw was actually in Los Angeles at the Biltmore Theater, was How to Succeed in Business.
Really?
Really trying. Very first, so Dick Coleman, I remember.
Oh my God.
Was the star of it.
And Diane Cannon.
And Diane Cannon played Rosemary, yes, and Willard Waterman was in it.
Yes.
Yes, and I still have the program from that.
Do you really?
That was the very first Broadway show I ever saw.
Oh my
as a
God.
kid. And, it stuck with me. I was even in it in high school. Not a very big part, but he was just a legend, as you say, and so are you. And you're still going. Look, can I say your age?
Sure.
You're 83.
Right.
And you're still doing it, and you're still turning it out. Frasier is back with us, and you came back and did the first 2 episodes of what they call the reboot of Frasier over at Paramount, and you're doing 2 more this season. For the second season.
I am, and it makes me feel young.
to keep going, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been sedentary. I hadn't worked since I did those first two of the first season of Reboot. I haven't worked like in 14 months.
Yeah.
And I need those pipes cleaned out. I need those, funny bones going in my head. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it.
And how did that come about? So you weren't involved in, rebooting this necessarily. They came to you once they had finally figured out the format here. We had Kelsey here. We were talking to him about it, and it went through all sorts of iterations in his head, bring back the original cast, all of that. And they finally landed on this, and they said, I gotta have Jimmy Burrows here.
Well, Kelsey and I are a pair. We have a shorthand that we've had for years because it'll be, let's see, he came on Cheers in '84, so it's 40 years that I've directed that character and known Kelsey.
Of course, Cheers, you were a co-creator of that, as well as the director.
Yeah.
237 episodes.
Oh my God, Pete, you've done your homework.
It's a lot of episodes.
I know. But it's I'm co-creator on that show. I wanted to protect the show as much as I could, so I did all those episodes and through all the iterations and all the cast changes and everything like that. And my bond with Kelsey is we have very few phrases that it's very succinct. When I want something from him, I say number 37, and he knows what I mean.
Wow.
Yeah. And when he wants something from me, he just says, let's kick the pig, which means let's move along. Wow. So we when we run into one another, we sing "It's the Good Life," the first line of it, because Kelsey used to do that on Frasier. So we have this history. People who are guest directors have to learn how to work with Kelsey. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, Kelsey directs himself now, too.
Right.
I think he's learned it all from observation of you. You learned observation of Jay Sandrich. I think, actors sometimes will go, I can do that.
Yeah. Kelsey's very good at that.
Yeah.
He has a brain for that. He knows what's funny, where the joke plays best, what angle to play the joke at, what attitudes to have. So, the writers trust him implicitly.
And you trust the writer. That
I
know
do.
About you. You honor the writer, which is great. Everything goes with the script and because it's a writer's medium, really. Let's face it, TV is, and that's important to you.
It is. I respect how hard the writers have worked on the script. So when I get it for a day of rehearsal, I stage it my way and show it to them as written, and then sometimes in rehearsal we come up with pieces of business or a new joke or something like that, and then after we run it their way, I show them a couple of things we came up with on stage.
Yeah.
But it is mutual respect for the writers and me and the actors, because I think it began on Cheers when I was a co-creator, that I was able, in rehearsing with the actors, to go to the writers after and say, these are the problems.
Right.
And on most sitcoms, that doesn't. The writers, writers who are, I like a writer to be able to defend the material, not be defensive about the material.
Right, yeah.
So when I read a pilot or anything like that, I immediately talk to the writer and say, this is what I think. And if the writer says, well, I'd rather do it my way, I don't do that show. I don't work on that show.
Yeah, life's too short.
Life's too short, and my suggestions, I always say 50 to a writer. I say 50% of what I give you is gold, and 50% is dross. I think that's the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah.
Golden. And it's your job to figure out which is which.
That's interesting.
Because I spew, and the ideas just come to me. So.
Well, as a master of the multicam created by Desi Arnaz, we always give credit to him with I Love Lucy of doing that and saving. Look at how that show is still
Oh my God.
with us, and it's because of simply that forward vision that he had as head of Desilu to start shooting, basically create this format. You are able to add so much. I mean, on the Frasier pilot, I think you tell the story, but you walked in and said, "Where's the door?" What something? It was about a door, right? That wasn't even there.
I don't remember. I do remember on the Frasier pilot that I was the one who said to David Hyde Pierce, use a handkerchief to wipe the chair in the cafe.
Yeah.
And he, to this day, still says that was the key to his character.
That's amazing.
So I, this again.
And in the reboot, though, there was a swinging door that needed
Oh,
to be in there.
yes. In the I say you're the Frasier reboot. Yeah.
Yeah.
The kitchen door.
That wasn't on the set or anything?
No, there was no kitchen door. And if you're going to do a farce, and there was a huge farce scene in the first episode, I said, it's got to be a swinging door. Has to be.
And they built it like that, and that was...
Oh, yeah.
And that makes all the difference. I mean, they have so many scenes in the kitchen in Frasier, and, they did it in the new one, too, They all have to keep going in. That was,
Because also swinging doors are so great because you can push the door open, say a line, and then walk back through without pushing the door.
I love it.
Because the door will swing back the other way. So there's I did that episode of on Cheers, Woody's Wedding.
Uh-huh.
The second half took place in the kitchen, and I had 2 double doors. One to come in and one to go out.
Yeah.
Because it's just, farce requires that.
So good, So reboots are a little popular again now. You obviously did Will and Grace. Again, you directed every episode of 8 seasons of Will and Grace, and then you came back at Hillary Clinton. They did a kind of a thing for her campaign, and that turned into a whole reboot of Will and Grace, and you were back with them again. And then, of course, Frasier now. We've seen other reboots, so Night Court's back on NBC, different shows. Is there one that you wouldn't bring back?
Cheers.
You would never bring back Cheers. Yeah. Why? Because it seemed like such a viable...
Sacred.
Yeah.
Sacred. You want... Kelsey kind of looks the same. Kelsey kind of looks the same as he did when he was doing the Frasier show.
Yeah.
But the characters in Cheers don't look the same,
Right.
They've aged. It wouldn't be the same show. And you got to be careful about hurting the original.
Yeah.
You want to keep that sacrosanct. So, and even on Will and Grace, they all look the same.
They did, sort
They
of.
did.
Yeah.
So I never considered that a reboot. I just considered that a continuation. But Frasier is definitely a reboot because it's a whole new setting with a whole new cast.
Brought him back to Boston,
Yeah.
but not in the Cheers format, but in his whole life with his son,
Right.
Freddie. And
Yeah.
that was the whole reason with the new cast and new characters. And
Right.
yeah, which is really it works. You look at it, I know you did the first 2 episodes, and you're comfortable with it as an audience member right away, I think.
Well, the audience sees the show through the eyes of Frasier.
Yeah.
And they all know Frasier.
Yeah.
So you have that the man who opens the window to the show
Yeah.
is leading you. I'll never forget when the first night of the reboot, when we shot it, Kelsey came out to talk to the audience, and they went crazy. And there's your entree.
There you go.
There's the man that's going to lead you into this world. It's a new world for him.
Yeah, it's a new world for everybody. We have streaming now. It's on Paramount Plus. There's you watch it without commercial breaks. These things are written differently now in those cases, and the networks. That's all changed so much for comedy.
Right.
On television, it's just a whole new world. And you've navigated all of it. But is it a sadder time now for television comedy, or is it? You know.
Well, you don't have, I like to say, when I started out, there were 3 networks and 30 great comedy writers.
Right.
Now there are 500 networks and streaming services
Yeah.
and 30 great comedy writers.
It's hard to fill in that great content.
Yeah, I mean, they only make so many of them. Yeah. And so now you get people making comedies who are not as well equipped or as funny or have a look on the world that's interesting to a large group of people. Now you can do niche television,
Right.
or niche television, and you don't need the audience like Cheers had.
Yeah, it's very interesting what's going on, and I look at the fall schedules, and it's all NCIS 12, and this Chicago is the whole night on NBC is Chicago this, that, and every, you know. And what happened to that golden era when we had so many things, when, you know, must-see TV, as it were, on NBC, and you had one gem of a show after another that they would do.
Well, because they would get rid of some of the shows on the air now because they weren't getting any ratings.
Yeah.
I mean, the show's ratings now are, I don't know, 1/5 of what they used to be.
Right.
Cheers had, 30 million people a week. It was crazy.
Communal viewing, too.
Yes.
Now it's like we can, they drop 10 episodes and you can watch it. I'm not a big fan of binge watching. I like watching a show and then talking about it and then wait the next week and all of that. But, it's just different.
Again, it's niche. It's niche television. My wife and I watch a couple of these new series that, not necessarily comedies because I don't know where to find them on streaming, but a couple of these new series are just wonderful.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't get a rating on back in the 70s.
Yeah, just different.
Yeah.
Well, look at what the Emmy winner for comedy was this year, The Bear, which is a great show, but is it hilarious?
No.
I think it's in the wrong category, but, it's hard to categorize, I guess, this stuff now.
Yeah, it's strange. I knew we were in trouble when one year at the Emmys, Ally McBeal was in the comedy category.
And they went from comedy to drama or
Right.
back and forth. They did. Shameless did the same thing, too. They just decide they're going to do it. I was on the board representing writers at TV Academy when Shameless put in a letter to say, we're a comedy now. So, because they thought it would be easier to get a nomination.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I voted against it, but I lost. Trying to keep the tradition going alive. Before we go, I just have to say, sometimes the shows that don't work are the most interesting to me. And I looked at your endless, Taxi, we didn't even mention here, 76 episodes, and Friends, you did the pilot and others, and just these legendary shows, but also one's Third Rock from the Sun's great too. I loved a show called The Associates, and it got axed by the network almost immediately. 13 episodes. It was James L. Brooks and stuff that came on. Martin Short.
James Ed Weinberg, Stan Daniels.
And I noticed you did 2 episodes of Faye with Lee Grant, which
God.
famously got canceled. And you can watch a couple of those episodes are on YouTube, and it's still funny. It's still good. You see what's lost. I mean, there are those that got away, I think, in some way.
They did. The Associates, they never had a leading man on that show. They didn't, they fired the good-looking one in the pilot episode.
Oh, really?
They fired John Getz, who played the attorney. So they had Marty, who was green then, and they had Wilfred Hyde White, who was hysterical.
Wonderful. He was.
Shelley Smith, and Faye had Lee. That's where I met Susan Harris.
Oh,
She wrote Faye.
That's right. Of course, she went on to Golden Girls and everything else.
And I did The Secret Life of Men with her. That show that wasn't on very long.
Yeah.
But the one I regret more than any is the show called The Class, which was David Crane, who created Friends with Marta Kaufman.
Yeah.
David Crane and Jeffrey Clarick wrote this show about a group of fourth graders who have a 20th reunion, and they reconnect. And it was about 5 different couples, and it was just a wonderful show that got axed for reasons of numbers, ratings, and it it wasn't given the chance to grow.
Yeah.
So that's the one, because I would have stayed with that for a while.
Yeah.
It was really, because I love great writing, and that had great writing.
You
So,
can always tell, and those guys are amazing. Yeah, it's sad, but the ones that live on, they're all in this book, folks. I got to tell you, you got to read this book. It'll teach you. If you want to be in TV, you really got to read it. But if you just watch TV, you got to read it. Anyway, James Burrows, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
Behind the
Pete.
Lens. Thanks,
I
man.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.